I'm gonna do a little reading. Still gonna stick with the same book. Alright. What's the matter, handsome? Never dirtied those clean hands before? Arkham, day one. Inmates leered at Bruce through the bars as he cleaned, their grins fixated on him and their taunts echoing down the halls. Boots and toothbrushes clanked against cell bars. His appearance today was a stark contrast from the way he'd shown up at the benefit on his birthday, clad in his tailored suit and standing beside his custom Aston Martin. Now he wore a blue worker's uniform from head to toe, his hands hidden underneath a pair of yellow cleaning gloves. Ignored him. Just concentrate. Bruce reminded himself as he made his way steadily along the corridor. They wanted to see his expression change, get a rise out of him. Girls, we got a billionaire mopping up our mess. Another cat call. Damn, guess money don't buy what it used to. He's cute, though, isn't he? I'd go to jail just for a piece of that. Come on, Bruce Wayne, give us a smile. Tell you what, we'll stop giving you such a hard time if you take your shirt off and use it to scrub the floor. Snickers rippled down the hall. They continued through the day, one hall after another, and until they all melded together into a single train of sound. Bruce kept his head down. James checked on him 3 times, and even though she never gave Bruce so much as a sidelong glance and a sniff, he still found himself looking forward to her presence. The inmates quieted whenever she appeared and stayed taunt-free for a good few minutes after she left, giving him moments of reprieve. Finally, at the end of the day, James came up to him. Get out of here, Wayne. She nodded for him to follow her down the hall. You're so tired that you're just smearing dirt around the floors. It wasn't exactly pity, but Bruce decided it was close enough. He barely remembered signing out. He couldn't even recall climbing into Alfred's car. All he could register was being grateful to sink onto the cool leather seats and waking up the following morning in his own bed. How is it so far? Diane asked him the next day as they headed to their English class together. Bruce tried to tune out the whispers and glances from classmates passing them in the hall. He could hear his name on their breath, along with snatches of rumors about why he'd crashed his car, shrunk, cocky, temper problems. The light coming in from the academy's windows stretched everyone's shadows into long stripes down the hall, encasing the school behind bars. Bruce sighed, forcing himself to stare straight ahead Yesterday had seemed to go on forever. He and he would have to go back to that real prison over and over again for weeks. Could have been worse, he replied, then launched into details as they reached their English room and settled into their seats. Diane gave him a pitying shake of her head. Ugh, sounds awful. 5 more weeks of that. It wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for all the catcalls. Bruce texted a few of the more memorable taunts he had gotten to her, so she wouldn't have to say them out. He wouldn't have to say them out loud. She grimaced. Yeah, well, I know what that's like, and it's not right. Bruce shook his head. I'm sorry, Di. I hate that you've had to deal with that. Diane put a reassuring hand on his arm. You'll make it. We're all getting out of here in a few weeks. She cut off as the bell rang, then went into a lower voice. Your time at Arkham will be over before you know it. Her words brought some small measure of comfort. Bruce took a deep breath and tried to take them to heart. Before I know it, he echoed. After all the jeers yesterday, the intensive treatment basement of Arkham seemed eerily quiet by contrast when Bruce arrived after school. The silence raised the hairs on the back of his neck. If he didn't know better, he could swear that this was a hall straight out of a horror film. A pale green cast of light, the bare walls, the faint echo of his boots. If ghosts were real, they would live here, whispering in the air. As he started down the hall, he listened to the voices of detectives coming from the last cell. Maybe they were interrogating the prisoner again today. Bruce had just made his way towards the first cell window, when a loud slam echoed from it. Instantly, he jumped back a step and saw an inmate staring at him through the window. Well, 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 the man said. It's the new boy. You look good enough to carve. He practically spat out the words, and as he did, he stirred the rest of the hall to life, until other shouts echoed along the corridor. Bruce looked away and concentrated on the floor before him instead. What's the matter, boy? The inmate said. What got you into this slum in the first place? Cleaning up our shit. Hey, where the hell you think you're going? He rapped madly on the glass when Bruce took a step away. You know what I did to get into this place? I carve real good. He made a cutting gesture along his neck and down his arms. Bruce sped up, trying to purge the haunting sound of the man's voice from his mind. The next cell was no better. It held an enormous man who looked even bigger in his jumpsuit, with every inch of his exposed olive skin tattooed, including his face. He let out a laugh as Bruce went by and didn't break his stare until he was completely out of sight. Then he rammed his giant shoulder against the glass, making the entire pain shiver. A third inmate was tall and eerily handsome, his veins visibly blue against his skin. Bruce recognized him from the news, a serial killer convicted of at least 24 murders carried out in gruesome fashion. The fourth inmate was bald and thick-necked, with eyes as pale and clear as water, pacing from one end of his cell to the other until his shoes bumped against the walls. These were murderers who had terrorized Gotham City when they roamed free, who had dominated the news cycles. Now the only thing separating Bruce from each of them was a layer of metal and glass. Finally, he reached the end of the hall. He slowed, then stepped closer to the last cell, where the officers had been interrogating the prisoner several days before, their voices raised and frustrated. His thoughts lingered on the inmates he had just passed, their twisted smiles and stares, their unspeakable crimes. If they were the sort who stayed down here, then what did it take to command the police's individual attention? Who sat in that last cell? I'm gonna stop.